Hey guys, today we're taking a look at my updated X-Saber deck. Now I know a lot of people wanted me to do this. I saw a lot of requests for it, so I decided to go back and update mine. I haven't changed too many things around, but I've added some new stuff and I've taken a look at the deck and just changed around a lot of ideas, trying out some just really interesting stuff. So X-Sabers are generally a swarming archetype. They swarm, they synchro summon, they recycle. They do a bunch of really weird things. They contribute their monsters and just go over the field like crazy. A lot of times they set up OTKs and they just set up a lot of stuff on the field. They have a lot of really interesting ability to bring out their synchros and still keep monsters coming out. So that will be the big idea behind the deck. And I'm just going to go through the cards and kind of talk about how that's going to work out for us. So I'm going to be running one Mythic Water Dragon. This is kind of interesting tech that I saw in this deck type that looks really cool. You could just throw this out with one of your tuners and instantly make, Leo or Star Eater, depending on what you're doing. So looks like this could be a very powerful tech card. Definitely a choice, only running it at one. Then Redox. Redox is really good, obviously, in an Earth-based deck. This deck, it's not as necessary because you don't want to banish your cards as much, but I still think it's really nice to do some recycling. Again, gives you access to other things because with 7 and 3, you can get out Leo again, so that's another powerful thing you could do there. And then we're running 2 Pashuul, one of the main tuners that helps you out. You can run this at 3, but because we're searching it out a lot, I don't think it's as necessary. Then 3 Boggart Knight, pretty staple at 3, easily a great swarming card that's also a beater, so just sets up things really, really nicely for what we want to do in this deck type. And then 3 Darksoul. Darksoul is again a really nice card for this deck type because you'll use it for your synchro summons, you'll recycle using it to get other cards back and just search through your deck, so it becomes very nice there. We're also running 3 Emmbersblade. I've seen some people run this at 2. 2 or 3 is fine. Again, just a searcher that annoys your opponent more because you're going to keep getting your monsters out. So you can go through your deck, get things in your graveyard, and search out monsters you want. Then we're running 2 Faultroll. Again, a very powerful card in this deck type. You could run this at 3. I'm running it at 2 because it could be cluggy at certain times, but it still is an extremely powerful card and will set up the swarming that you want to do with this deck type. Just a great card in general. And then we're running 2 Fulhelmknight, the other tuner in the deck type that, is just meant to be sort of a stall and just gives you some additional power to swarm. Obviously sets up, different levels of synchros and just important for what you want to do. Another card you could run at 3, but I do like 2 with both of the tuners in this deck type. For the spell support, we're going to be running 1 Book of Moon. Useful in a lot of decks, but you can use this in this deck to abuse some things like Faultroll, so it becomes a more powerful card in this deck type. Running 3 Tenki to search out Boggart Knight, which is very important for setting up what we need to do. Very powerful card, and you can use this and run other cards additionally. You could definitely run this at 2, but I think 3 is nice for the consistency it brings you. 2 MST, 1 Raigeki, 2 Reinforce of the Army, again a consistency card that helps you out a lot to get those cards that you need. 1 Snatch Steal, obviously off the ban list. Very interesting in this deck because you can make certain plays. You're limited in the synchros that you do depending on what you're doing with your cards, but I still think it's a very powerful card. It depends on your extra deck layout, but again, even if you don't necessarily make the synchro with the card you're taking, it still can be very powerful. And then 1 Soul Charge, just obvious how powerful this card is for this deck type. For the traps, a lot of staples. We're going to be running 1 Breakthrough Skill, not Fiendish Chain because we're running Trap Stun, so not really a smart thing for us. We're also running 2-Dimensional Prison, 2 Gottoms Emergency Call. You could run this at 3. I think 2 is fine. It could be cloggy early on. Obviously, it's an extremely powerful card, but you do want it in the right situation. Solemn Warning I do want to mention because some people will talk about Saber Hole. I think Solemn Warning is a lot better to run, but Saber Hole is still a powerful card, and I won't say it's bad to run Saber Hole, but I still think it's something you have to consider whether you're going to always have an X-Saber out, especially depending on your extra deck layout. Your extra deck is not going to be full of X-Sabers. It's going to have a lot of variety in it, so Solemn Warning becomes more useful if you want to go into those other synchros. So now for the extra deck, I'm going to have a lot of variety of synchros in here. 1 Armades, 1 Goyo Guardian, very powerful. 1 Leo with some of the things we're doing makes a lot of sense. And then running both of the Naturias, obviously very powerful cards. 1 Scrap Dragon, 1 Stardust. These are the 2 8s I went with because I felt like they would be the most useful in this deck type. Scrap Dragon, obviously, it's fine to send your cards to the graveyard, and Stardust sets up what you want with this deck so well because you can lock down your opponent while swarming. So I think Stardust is very nice for this deck type. Star Eater, again, with some of the things we're doing. And then the X-Sabers, pretty normal to run. 1 or 2 Souza, 1 Gottoms, and 2 Hyunlei. Not much to say there. Those are pretty staple for the deck type, but you can run some different amounts if you want. Very light on XYZs in this deck. We don't have the luxury to run a lot of XYZs. Pita Lemmy is staple in this deck because it has some really powerful things you could do with Faultroll. You can make some loops, and it's just so great. Once you start to see what this deck can abuse with Petalemi, you can start to see why this card is so essential. That's why we run this instead of any other rank 6 in this deck type. We have room for about one rank 4, so Silent Honor, Exciton, whatever you want to put in here, Kestel. I do think Silent Honor is probably the most useful one, but there's a lot of, rank 4s that are extremely powerful and useful. And then run one Soul of Silvermountain with a lot of level 3s. We don't run a lot of level 3 XYZs, but this one's usually the staple one because you can make additional advantage from this deck, and helps you a lot because dealing with set cards is great for a deck that goes in, with crazy swarming. So now for the side deck. If you haven't seen a video of mine before, I just like to talk about some recommended ideas. Not really a side deck for matches. I just want to throw out some stuff that could be useful for this deck type. Because we're maining 3 Tenki, Bear you could just throw in here if you want. Just throw in one as tech. Effect Veiler, another fine thing because we're not running Fiendish, so you can run this and do other synchro plays. Birdman looks like a really interesting card for this deck type because of the abuse you can do with certain cards. So I think this could be a really nice card. I'm just not trying to run it in this deck right now, but looks like it could be useful. Grand Soil with the Graveyard Manipulation and Earth, you can easily bring this guy out. There are a couple other X-Sabers that I would consider. Airbellum and Regurguru are the two that are probably more used outside of the ones we're currently using. I just don't think they're super useful. They're situational. They're both very situational, but they're not horrible cards at all. Forbidden Lance I was running in my last build. We're running Trap Stun and MST, so we're running kind of a different variation on back row. You can run Forbidden Lance, you can run Wiretap, you can run whatever you want for back row. This is just what I went with. There are a couple OCG cards, Emergency Convocation and Saber Reflect. They both look pretty decent. I have to kind of take a closer look at them when they come out. I think that Saber Reflect is coming out soon, so I'll probably take a look at that going forward, but for now, not really considering them for my TCG deck, obviously. Warrior Returning Alive obviously could be useful for this deck type. Reinforced Truth, some people run one of this, can be useful obviously to bring up Pashuul and make plays for you. Saberhull I already did kind of discuss why I'm not running it, but it still can be useful. If you want to run a rank 7, you can run Black Rose or just some of the other random, level 7s out there like Yazi. It's up to you. It's not really what the deck is trying to do, but it's just an option you have. If I was going to run a different level 8 synchro, I would run Crimson Blader, but I wanted Scrap and Stardust and I wanted the other things I had in my deck, but still a very nice card. And some people run Invoker. I just don't think it's very useful because you're only bringing out Boggart Knight. So in that regard, I just don't think it's going to really help you in doing what the deck is trying to do. So up to you, but I would say not to run it. So that's my updated X-Saber deck. Again, just a swarming deck that focuses on synchro summoning. A lot of fun, can do a lot of really crazy plays on the field, bringing out 3, 4, 5 monsters at once, doing multiple synchro summons and a lot of different plays. It really looks like a cool deck, but it needs a little more support, I think, to become a little stronger. I think it'll get that in the future, maybe with some of those OCG cards or some more monsters. I think it could use a few more cool monsters to set up what it needs to do. So hopefully we'll see that in the future. But if you guys have your own X-Saber decks, you can definitely post below. Let me know in the comments. You could talk about what cards you use and maybe make some suggestions for me. But that's about it for me. As always, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.